And today we're making gumbo. Our ingredients for today are going to be 1/2 cup of fat, 1 cup of flour. And the reason, actually about 7/8 cup. These are both 4 ounces by weight. You want equal weights of flour and fat. I happen to be using bacon grease. I want 12 ounces of andouille sausage. I want 6 ounces of mahi or a similar fish. You could use swordfish if you wanted to. I'm going to have 12 oysters plus their liquor, a pound of okra, a quart of stock. I'm going to be using seafood stock, and 1 pound of crawfish tails. I bought pre-done crawfish tails because the yield is about 15%. These things cost me about $17, and if I had gone and bought live crawfish and done them up myself, it would have cost me $24. I'm going to want 3 ribs of celery, 1 bell pepper, 3 garlic cloves, minced, 1.5 tablespoons of gumbo filet, that's that little powder there, 1 bay leaf, 4 sprigs of thyme, 1.5 cups of tomatoes, and then we're going to have 1 onion, and then parsley for the finish. I'm making a double recipe, so I have 2 pounds. I've already cut up my onion and everything else. The very first thing that we're going to want to do is mix our roux together. So you're going to add your flour and fat, and you're going to whisk that, and you're going to put it on medium-low heat. You could put it on higher heat, but you would have to babysit it a lot. We're going to let this go past mahogany. It's going to start off looking pretty plain Jane. We're going to take it to peanut butter, and then we're going to go up to mahogany. So it's going to be a nice dark brown when we're done. Once you get done with that, probably the next place to start is with the onions and celery and bell peppers, because those are going to go in. They actually cool down your roux when you put them in. Pretty simple on the onion. You're going to cut it in half, leave the root side on to hold it together. These are going to be fairly large dice on this. So like that, and it comes out like that. I'm going to add that to my already prepared bowl. You'll see that I've got some red, or I don't know if you saw it before, I've got some red and some white onion, and actually this is yellow onion. You can use whatever you want. Next part is going to be the celery. If the rib is a little bit too fat here on this end, cut up just a little bit like that so that you get smaller pieces. You want, again, about the size of those onion bits. So kind of a medium dice on this. And we'll put all that in there, and then the last part is going to be our bell pepper. Start by cutting off the ends. Find a place where there's a hole, as in not one of these 4 ribs. Slice down and put your knife in there and just unroll it to cut out the pith. And then we're going to cut that into pieces about like that. It can be a little bit smaller, it can be a little bit bigger. It's kind of a matter of personal taste. And again, I am using a red and a green bell pepper on this one because I wanted a little bit more color. The next step is going to be to prepare our tomatoes and our okra and the garlic, but the garlic's pretty simple. You're just going to make some real fine slices on that. A little bit about the size of the back of your knife. Tomato, you can use whatever you want. I have used, this happens to be a Campari. I used also, because they were needed to get done, and I'm just going to stew the bejesus out of them, I used some Roma tomatoes. For this Campari, I'm going to cut each half into quarters and then cut that in half. So these slices are going to be roughly, again, about the size of all of the other stuff that we were using for the onions and what have you. And this one I'm going to cut in thirds and then cut twice this way, so you can see same basic size on the cut there. Next step is the okra. Off. The ends off, we want the tips. I'm gonna cut those ends off, and again, same basic size as everything else that we're doing. So they're, I don't know, about little over a 1/4 inch, little under 1/2 inch. And that is the end of our vegetable prep. Now we're going to deal with our proteins. Crawfish tails, I'm just going to put in as is. My andouille sausage, and you could use like smoked kielbasa sausage. You're probably going to want to cut about 1/4 inch thick. You can cut nice in little wheels like that if you want, or you can cut them on the bias like that. I prefer to cut them on the bias. You're going to get a little bit bigger piece of sausage as compared to if you were cutting little wheels, but it's going to look a little nicer, I think. I'm going to set that aside here, and then we're going to pull out one of our mahi fillets. This is a 6-ounce fillet, and I'm just going to, and the reason we're using the mahi, or you might be using swordfish, I want it to stand up a little bit. I don't want this to just fall apart in my gumbo. And again, same rule, everything's going to be cut about to the same size. The oysters I'm not going to do anything with. They're actually going to go at the very, very end, and I bought pre-shucked oysters because, again, I don't want to waste the time, and by the time I throw away the shell and whatever else, it's about the same price. Now we have our roux done. It is a nice kind of mahogany color. We can take it a little darker if we want to, but we don't want to burn anything. Our next step is to put the vegetables in. We're doing this for 2 reasons. Number one, we want to go ahead and sweat all these veggies. We might as well use this nice roux that we've got going. Number two, we want to stop the roux from cooking. And so when you put in cold vegetables like that, you're going to stop the roux. And then you don't have to worry about burning it. So we're going to let these sweat just for about 5 minutes, and we'll be done with that. Now the roux in total took about 30 to 40, will take about 30 to 45 minutes depending on your temperature. If you want to sit over there and babysit it, you can turn it up a little bit higher, and otherwise it's gonna take a while, and just sit back and enjoy it. Now that we've sweated off our vegetables, the next thing to do is to thicken everything. So starch gelatinizes when it gets hot and reacts with water. So in this case, stock. So I'm going to bring stock and the vegetables with the roux to a boil until we get a nice thick base. And then as necessary, we will add some liquid because this is going to have to cook a while. You can see I'm also using some vegetable stock as well. With the amount of seafood that I do have going in this, I didn't want to overdo it. So now that's going to come to a boil. Now we have brought everything to a boil, brought it back down. You can see that the liquid is a little bit on the thick side, not super thick. We don't want like gravy thick. Now we're going to put in the okra. By the way, gumbo is derived from an African word that means okra. So yes, okra belongs in your gumbo. In addition to, just from a philosophical standpoint, all of the okra is going to help thicken it just a little bit more. We're going to put all our protein in except for the oysters, and we're going to put the okra in, and then we're going to simmer it for about an hour. Once we've brought everything up to a boil and we've got that base thickening, we're going to add almost all of our ingredients. The only thing we're going to leave out is going to be the oysters because we're going to put them at the very end. Otherwise, you end up with kind of super balls. So you're going to put in your okra. You're going to put in your tomatoes, the gumbo filet, all the protein, so the fish, the crawfish, the sausage, and then the garlic as well. You may have to, when you add everything in, add a couple more quarts of water just to make certain that you have enough liquid to cook it all in. And there we have it, New Orleans seafood gumbo. Enjoy!